Next is the iFLOW Navien communication cable. So the Navien and the iFLOW can communicate, and they communicate to coordinate on supply water temperatures, on GPM rate, on incoming water temperature, outgoing water temperature, and this is the cable that will connect the two together. It looks very much like the like the Navien multi-link cable, but it's not. The actual pin connections are different. So this is the Navien iFLOW communication cable, and it's got the iFLOW air handler contact marked on one end, and then the Navien end marked on the other. So make sure you have those right. And then it connects into the board. There are actually two RS-485 connections on our board. One at the top and then one under the display. Where the iFLOW portion of the cable connects is to the lower one, right? It's to the lower one below the display, not this one at the top upper right corner. This one is up for additional communication with your building management system. This is for the iFLOW or for the iFLOW Navien connection. So again, the communication cable is an option, again, because we don't know if you're using a Navien or not. But if you are using a Navien and you want to use the communication cable, then you have the option to do. Again, it's auto adjusting the temperature based on the outdoor sensor, and then it has a burner off post purge pump exercise function that basically scrubs all the BTUs out of the Navien, brings it into the iFLOW, and the iFLOW will then keep its blower moving to deliver that into the home. So even if the unit is cycling, you're still pulling most of the heat out of the Navien, delivering it into the space for maximized efficiency. And then the last component on the electrical side is the Wi-Fi dongle. So in your unit, you will get a Wi-Fi dongle that will come with each of the Wi-Fi or zoning models. It doesn't come with the base model, sorry, and is not upgradable because the chipset on the base model board doesn't have the power to run the communication. So this is your Wi-Fi dongle. It has the passcode on one side and the SSID on the other, and you will use that to connect to your home network. It plugs in up on the upper right corner of the board. It says Wi-Fi module. It just connects in there. Have the power off when you do this, so power down the unit, power down the iFLOW, plug your contact in, then power it up, and then the SSID will broadcast from here. And then just as you would connect your printer to your home network, connect your Nest thermostat to your home network, connect your phone to your home network, same idea. Use the SSID will show up, enter the password, and connect it to your home network. You can download the iFLOW app from the iFLOW store, or not from the iFLOW store, from the App Store, from the iPhone store, or Google Play. It's available in both formats, Android and iPhone. So next, let's look at the outputs. So maybe before that, let's just do a quick review. I will move the computer out of the way. We'll go back in front of the unit. So again, we ran through a lot of different connectors, and I just want to go through the unit now to show you where those are. So again, the supply water temperature. This is the supply water temperature sensor, this red wire that's connected to the incoming water, so the inlet of the iFLOW. The return water temperature sensor is located on this pipe that goes out, so the outlet of the iFLOW, and it is typically a black wire. Both of those will wire down through. They've got wiring harness, so they've got a male-female connection on either side, and those will come through and they will wire to this harness. So this is your supply water temperature and your return water temperature sensor. here at this contact. As I mentioned, we have our supply air temperature sensor, which I showed you above. That's this one above on top of the coil. It is actually coming through this grommet on the top. So there's a little grommet right on the top here that it feeds through, and then down again through this wiring harness and into your supply air temperature sensor right here. Then the return air temperature sensor comes off this same, so the return air temperature, but this, instead of going to the top with the coil, it's looking to measure the return air, so it makes sense that it's on the return side. So as your air comes in the left or right or bottom, it's going to come in through this black wired harness, and it's connected here. And again, when we are using an AC coil on the return, we're going to have to relocate this sensor to upstream of the AC coil. So again, if my AC coil is here, instead of using an evaporator, or instead of using an A style, an A coil, we have the slab coil on the return. We need to take this sensor and move it upstream so it's measuring the right return air temperature, and then we need to move this AC coil, this sensor, to closer to the actual coil, but on the downstream of the AC coil. So your AC evaporator temperature sensor is downstream, and your supply or your return air temperature sensor is upstream of the slab coil. Again, I mentioned the wiring. So again, recall that our AC output is right here. So on all the iFLOW models, the wiring for the AC compressor is always a separate output, and it's located right here, Y1, C, and Y2. So do not, on your thermostat connection, do not wire your compressor from Y1 or Y2 here. That is going to bypass the freeze protection. You're not going to have any freeze protection. You're going to potentially damage the hydronic coil that will not be covered under warranty. And the sensors won't be seeing the right temperatures either. So it's really important to make sure that you wire your AC from the output accordingly. The DH evaporator temperature sensor, again, I mentioned that was, this has got a black, this is this black lead, this black harness with the white wiring, and this goes to the suction line when you're using a heat pump. If you're not using a heat pump, you don't need to worry about that, because it's only used to measure the temperature of the line when we're heating, using the heat pump for heating, and to measure the position of the reversing valve. But if you're just using regular AC, then you don't need to worry about that without problem. Alright, then I mentioned the outdoor sensor. So this is the outdoor sensor connection. Here, this is a sample unit, so we've got this connected to a potentiometer so I can actually adjust the outdoor sensor, but normally you just have your 2-wire connected to the OD contact here on the board. The 2 contacts below that are for the flow switch, so if you do have a flow switch to give you domestic priority, then that would connect here. What that does is, when we see a contact here, we will stop the blower when there is a call from the flow switch. So when the flow switch is on, we're assuming that there is domestic priority, and we will stop running the heating in the interim until the flow switch signal is finished. If you're running a boiler with an indirect, you can wire the flow switch to the to where the pump is, so that when the pump comes on to recharge your tank, that you get the same domestic priority there as well. If you don't, then depending on how the flow is in your system, how you've piped it, you might starve the iFLOW a little bit for heat if you've got domestic priority on your boiler. Okay, the humidity sensor. As I mentioned, we have the humidity sensor. That is that's this yellow lead. This is your humidity sensor. Again, you can program that on the board. If you go into mode 3, general parameters, number 3, 45%. So this is the humidity level. If you want to change that, you can adjust it up or you can adjust it down, whatever you like. And you just set it, and that's the new parameter that it will look for. So it's looking for the humidity level at the sensor, and if the humidity is below the set level, so if my humidity level is 35%, for example, then I would call on my humidifier at this point. So I have HUM right here, these 2 points. Now, when I call that on, LED light is going to illuminate on this side of the relay. So you can always tell what is going on inside the iFLOW controller, because there will be an appropriate light that illuminates on either side of the relay. So if we're calling for heat, for example, we're going to get a red light on the other side of the W. When the pump is activated, we're going to get a red light here. When any of these output contacts are operating, we are going to get a corresponding light on this side of the relay to show us exactly what's operating. So we know what is going on inside the board based on the LED lights that are illuminating, and we can follow the sequence of operations very easily. Again, I mentioned the Navien communication cable. Again, there are 2 ends. There's the Navien water heater end, and then there is the iFLOW end. And that iFLOW end will connect directly to this lower contact right there. So that connects in, and we have them in 16 feet or 5 meters, or 32 feet, 10 meters. So 2 different lengths that you can select from. And then just wire that over to the Navien. On the Navien, when you connect it, you just connect it and it will, and physically that's all you need to do. But then you need to go into the controller on the Navien and initiate communication. That is parameter 28 on the Navien. You'll have to turn that to on, so that it then starts to communicate with the iFLOW. That is the connection for that. And then the last connection was the Wi-Fi. So again, the Wi-Fi contact, the Wi-Fi module, the contact is up in this right corner, and it just plugs in right there. Right? And that's your Wi-Fi. So those are all of the major components for this section in part 1. Next, I'm going to look at the thermostats and then the dampers in part 2. Thank you.